Hey everybody, welcome back to Ravenstead. It's time for another build. I'm going to do something a little different this go around. I'm making a little 8" by 8" encounter tile. This is kind of going along with a theme of my new Kickstarter. Making some Spanish coins, pieces of 8, and I imagine pirates slipping up into this cove and hiding some of their treasure. So let's get into the build. I'm going to use a craft knife here. I don't cut myself, so don't worry about that. Just going to carve down these edges a little bit. Again, I'm going to use this for miniature gaming, so it's more of a tabletop aid than a diorama. So it's got the grid on there for moving miniatures around. I use a ball of aluminum foil here just to get a little bit of texture to the surface, not too much. And then I used a wire brush to get that striated rocky look there to the edges. That's going to be a creek and then the waterfront. I wanted to texture that creek area pretty deeply, so I'm pushing down pretty hard with that aluminum foil. You can see that it's making a pretty good dents in there. I decided not to use resin for this build. I like my builds to be a little bit more accessible to the crafter on a budget. I did use a hot wire cutter to cut out those 2 pieces, but you could do it with a craft knife. You just have to be careful. Alright, all textured up. I need some stones, some boulders. I was going to do like a cliff face in the back, but it was a little too imposing, so I decided to build up the terrain with just a bunch of boulders in there. It looks kind of weird at first, but just trust that process and kind of cobble them in there. And I'm just using pieces of foam that I'm breaking away with my fingers. We'll go ahead and black this out with some Mod Podge and black acrylic paint. I'm really flowing it into those boulders. They're hot glued together, but it needs the extra adhesion of that coating there. So we'll get those worked all into the crevices, and that'll give us our good shadows later on. I mentioned treasure, so I'm thinking about making an adventure with buried treasure. Some of the pieces of 8. Here, I'll give you a look at them here in just a second. There it is, the pirate coin. And that's going to be on my new Kickstarter, Riches of Ravenstead. And it's live now. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. Alright, back to the build. I'm going to do some dry brushing. One of my viewers challenged me to break out of my normal palette, so we're going to do that a little bit with this piece. I'm just using some medium gray, light gray, and then a color called parchment. It's a light tan. That's pretty much my normal go-to as far as doing rocky textures. The flat surfaces, I didn't want to use flocking because I didn't want to lose the grid there, so we're going to end up painting that out and using washes to get us the grassy look that we want. And then just a little bit of green, dry brushing that in. Don't be afraid to just kind of let go and be a little sloppy about it if you want to. It's no big deal. You can always go back and cover up your mistakes. It's not a big thing. There we go. So here, kind of a bold move. Gonna paint out the water areas first with the parchment, and then I'll go in with a wet on wet technique, which is difficult with acrylic paints. It's easier with oil paints, so you got to work quickly. Going in with a blue and just kind of blending that right in on the terrain, and I'll add in a little bit of green. There we go. That'll just give us some different depth to the water. Now you could go over this with acrylic resin. That would look pretty cool. Put a little dam on the front and the back of the water areas, but I just wanted to do it with paints. Challenge accepted. I will eventually go over this with some gloss Mod Podge, which gives it a nice shine, because these paints, these are just cheapo craft paints, and they kind of dull down as they dry. And just dabbing in a little bit of like wave and current action there on the surface. Kind of lost the grid a little bit on the water, but once it's all glossed up, they kind of pop back out. And then I'm taking a dry brush, it's got no paint on it, and then just kind of going over the edges, blending in things, and then dabbing back a little bit of light color with that light tan. Now for some washes. This is a sepia wash. It's acrylic ink, sepia acrylic ink mixed with water. About 50-50. And then a little green wash. That's just a true green acrylic paint mixed with water. I do put a couple of drops of jet dry in there to help it flow. And then a little Vallejo rust wash here and there. So back to my old antics. That's my standard palette. But it was fun doing the water. It was kind of a bravery test there. And then that mutes down really nicely as it dries. We'll put in a little bit of foliage. I've got some preserved lichen I want to just tuck in here and there. Partly for the look of foliage, but also to cover my mistakes and my sloppy hot gluing. So if you got a glob of hot glue or something just doesn't look right, or you missed a spot and you see pink foam, you can just jam a piece of lichen in there. And I made some static grass clumps, and oh yeah, something's living in there, that's for sure. So some static grass clumps with yellow flower flocking. So I just make the grass clumps, spray it with a little bit of clear acrylic, and then dip it into the flocking, and it sticks in there pretty nicely. That gives us a good splash of color. One more little plant there, and then we'll put some Mod Podge on the water. I'm using gloss and just kind of letting go here, avoiding big brush strokes. So I'm kind of just dabbing it in, kind of building it up a little bit over where I've got the waves coming in, so I have a little texture. And then just brush a little bit up on the edges of the rocks, and that'll give a little shine like they're wet. Well, that's done. Let me give you a look. There it is, the Pirate Cove. I'd like to go fishing there, or treasure hunting. Our old wizard's looking for that treasure. There it is. And you thought I forgot the rotten plank. No such luck. There she is. I don't know if I'd want to use that. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Leave me a comment down below. Love to hear from you. And make sure you get a chance to check out that Kickstarter. Thanks again.